I don't know. I think in the process of still seeing him, I'm still walking with the ghost of the relationship, which this week led me to, really decide that I needed to dig deeper into what that was. What is it that why are you still holding on? And, someone mentioned to me that, like I still loved him. And I felt in that moment that that they may have thought that they were identifying an ugly secret, but I've never made it a secret that I still loved my ex. I never made that a secret. What I think I have been able to do, or have been working on being able to do, is to really, I guess, really just taking into account the fantasy of it and what I expected and what I wanted to happen, and, realizing my role in all of it. I think I had to go through all of those motions for myself, and just to get to the point where moving on is now healthy. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of times people use new relationships to move on. People use other things, you hold on to something that comes out in some sort of other way, some sort of other addiction, whatever it is, shopping, just doing too much of anything. Even when you're physically able to move on, you have to understand that moving on is an agreement between your heart and your head. You know what I mean? And so when those two things come into agreement and you are able to identify some things, and I just, all week have been thinking about, okay, well, what are those things? Like, if you could tell anybody what those things are, what would they be? And, I think one of the most difficult things that I've had a issue with is cutting off contact. I still felt like closure was something that I should be seeking. Closure in the form of having to hear that this person say, I did something wrong to you, and for that I apologize. That kind of closure. And, I deal heavily from an egoic standpoint of not only being right, but wanting to hear that I'm right, And so from that standpoint, I had to protect myself, and I have to realize that there needs to be healthy boundaries for both of us, but specifically for me. I think that a lot of times some people feel like there has to be friendship, depending on the circumstance. Oh, we have kids together, or, oh, we share some sort of financial something. I think you can remain friendly and not be friends. Being friends is a choice. Being friendly is just a common respect kind of factor there. And I think that I don't need to be friends, and I'm not even harboring anything. I think that healthy boundaries is something that probably more so on his side that needs to exist. And so even recognizing that is just a step in me saying, okay, you can move on. You're probably not going to get this, and that's okay. And there needs to be healthy boundaries between y'all. Y'all don't need to have communication at all. This person doesn't need to be in your life or the life of anybody that you know at all. I also have to work through the fantasy. And I realized that some of the pain that I feel or felt post a relationship is kind of what I wanted he and I to be, and not what we actually were. I never forget the full truth of our relationship, but I also know that your mind is trying to heal your heart. And so in that process, there are memories that often shift what is the true background of the relationship, So moving on from that anger of even accepting that the fantasy was not real. Accepting the relationship for what it was, is part of my healing process, and making peace with the past. My relationship is not defined by one incident, although one incident really definitely helped to bring forth the demise of my relationship. But there's no worse feeling than when you love and when someone you love does something that causes you to reevaluate who you believed them to be. It is a really hard pill to swallow. It is hard when you feel betrayed. Especially when the person who's betrayed you is not wanting to own it. Is kind of making it like, well, listen. But I think that that's when you have to get outside your ego and understand that it's human nature to operate from a selfish place. And the impact of somebody's action on another is often a secondary consideration in most situations. More times than not, when someone hurts you, you are impact. Your impact. Very rare is someone doing it with the caveat that, like, what they're actually looking to do is destroy you. That's rare. That's somebody who has an actual psychosis. They have a problem. More times than not, this is someone who is operating from a selfish place, not thinking about what that impact is going to do to you. And understanding that doesn't make the situation right. But seeing other people's perspective can help you understand how certain events unfolded and make it easy for you to let go of it being attached to your personal ego. At least in my case, that's what it was. Understanding that what happened, the situation that I was involved with overall, a lot of bad decisions were made in that. Some of it, the ownership goes on me, but a lot of it, listen, I was casualty. When that person did what they did to betray me, they weren't necessarily even thinking about the fact that they weren't in the act of it all. They weren't thinking about me as a casualty. They were thinking about getting whatever they wanted to get out of it. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes when I find myself steeped in anger because of how someone has offended me, I got to pull back and recognize that everybody is human. We all make mistakes. We have flaws. Therefore, for me, I have to make peace with what happened. I mean, you got to understand, realizing that most people don't specifically set out to hurt you, but they just are so egocentric that they only know how to make decisions to make themselves feel good. Like, understanding that makes moving on that much more possible, And listen, don't ever let nobody make you feel bad for still loving. I think people have to just, listen. I think that one of the best gifts that I've ever given myself in this life is the ability to stay conscious, is to be conscious and try to stay conscious. And it's hard work. A lot of times I regress because what I've perfected is how to be unconscious and how to just operate from a sense of self. I know that well, as most of us do. So that is second nature for me. That's like nothing. Being conscious and, really getting grounded and getting conscious so I don't just react, that's difficult for me. Here's the truth. Anytime you can experience love, it's a fantastic fucking thing. Love is not one-dimensional. It can take on many forms. And when it comes to romantic love, there are many other factors that contribute to a healthy and a loving relationship. Listen, relationships we have last forever. At least to me, they do in my mind. Now, the relationship you have may not last forever. But for our memories and the feelings that we acquired, who we become because of those feelings, and the lessons that we take on our lives' journeys, Those relationships were necessary. And it's still okay to love someone. There's nothing wrong with that. Love is okay. Love is okay to feel. Love doesn't have to work out in order for it to be okay. You can still love somebody who fucked you over. The issue is not with you loving them. The issue is with loving yourself more. You have to believe that the kind of love that you feel like you deserve, that you are also capable of. You got to believe that there's the ability for you to share a relationship with someone who values and treats you well and requires that you view yourself in a positive light. You have to. Self-forgiveness, self-love, self-understanding, even in hindsight. Use the course of any relationships to teach you something about yourself. Like, think about that. Acknowledging your role and what went wrong in any relationship is pivotal to the moving on process. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just be in the relationship and refuse to see it. Refuse to see your part in it. That's how you move on. It's been difficult to move on because I know that in this relationship, he's not owning anything that he did, and no one else has the right to question that. It doesn't matter who you are even. When you have insight to understanding your love and your role, it doesn't mean that you make it about what the other person needs to do. You embrace your ownership of the behavior so the next relationship can be a better one. You know what's funny? The ironic part of life is that we need relationships. We need relationships with other people in order to see ourselves more clearly. Every relationship is a reflection back to us of the energy that we're putting out in the world. Never forget that. Never forget. No one can be alone. That's not even, like, that goes against the very meaning of your existence. So you have to be able to live like, I am okay with being single. I don't want to be alone. I don't think anybody should want to be alone. I need relationships with other people, and that stuff helps me grow. Even when the relationships end, it isn't a failure for me. If I learned something that can move the trajectory of my life and my knowingness in life forward, that is the benchmark of success for me. And I think that is, that's just kind of the lesson that I've been dealing with this week and the lesson that I've been owning. Ooh, child, I got the frogs in my throat. I think that it is just important for us to really see ourselves and see these relationships and not see them as failures, but see them for what they are, and it's not about whether or not it's not about whether or not the relationship lasts forever. I'm able to move on because I see all of these things in the relationship. Yeah, I can still love somebody, but I'm still able to move on. And I don't want to be the type of person that is not ready to move on because I don't want to be an emotional burden to anybody. I think that would be fucked up. I'm dealing with my shit so that the person who gets me is like really getting a prize, because me being a prize has nothing to do with the car I drive, where I work, the clothes I wear, any of that, the makeup that I do, the hair that I beat. It has nothing to do with that. It is how conscious I choose to be in this life and then being able to walk in that. That is my true purpose. So, yeah. I know, heavy this week, no? Oh, papi. As usual, Mother thanks you for listening. I love you. Be safe this weekend. Have fun this weekend. Split your butt cheeks wide open and accept invitations. Okay. All right, Backdoor Betties. I will talk to you guys next week, Sunday, same time, same place. Peace.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor.